What I'd like to do right now is share a brief version of the story that first pursued me and caught me long before I had any idea of becoming a Magid. I was 14 at the time. We were very fortunate. We were living in the Philippines because my father was a university professor and he had gone on an extended sabbatical. At the time, I knew almost nothing about the Philippines. In fact, the one thing I knew was that the great hero Magellan had come to his untimely end in the Philippines. Now, at that point in my life, all I knew about Magellan in the Philippines was that Magellan was this great man who had high hopes and strong dreams of sailing around the world, circumnavigating the globe, we were taught. And he would have made it. In fact, many of his crew did, if it weren't for these terrible savages that had killed him along the way. He otherwise would have completed his dream. And what a great tragedy it was that his life was snuffed out before he could complete his dream. So imagine my surprise when we land on the island of Cebu, which is where we lived, and I discovered that the next island over, the island of Mactan, is where the great national hero named LapuLapu lived. He's a great hero. I mean, he's on the centavo, like Lincoln is on our penny. Everybody knows LapuLapu. LapuLapu, the great chief who beat off the foreign invaders and saved the Philippines from aggression and taxing. Sound familiar? Yes, it was LapuLapu who killed Magellan. But in the Philippines, he's a great hero. The stories about LapuLapu, and you'll hear more of them in my course, are really fantastic stories. A wonderful man who had an open and generous heart, but was just pushed into having to resist this foreign invader past the limits of anything he really ever wanted to do. Now picture this. You're 14 years old. And all of a sudden, you've discovered that something you absolutely knew was true. I mean, there was never any discussion about was there another point of view on this. It was that Magellan was a great chief who would have traveled around the world, a great sailor who would have traveled around the world were it not for this terrible savage. To find out that there's another truth that lives at the same time in the same place as that story. That while, yes, Magellan was a great and brave man, so was LapuLapu. And LapuLapu stood up for his people against a superior force and managed to save his people and his country. How can we hold these two opposite views at the same time? How can we tell the story of LapuLapu and Magellan without sanctifying one over the other? Because they were both heroes. They both had great dreams. They both wished for a better world in the way they conceived of it. And yet, they were absolute enemies. There has to be a way to do that. And when you tell stories with such conundrums in them, and you tell them truthfully, with an open heart, then you know what? We are able to see the truth that lies beneath the two opposite sides of the story and what lies underneath them. Come, study with me in my program and you'll learn how to tell these stories, whether they're from your own tradition or from another tradition entirely, and illuminate your life and the lives of those to whom you're telling your stories. Thanks.